Okay, hello. We are ready for the final, hopefully, installment of The Cask of Amontillado. Again, published or written by Edgar Allan Poe, originally published in November of 1846. So, as you've been reading along, we know Montresor has decided to seek revenge on his friend Fortunato, and he has taken him down into his catacombs because they're going to taste some wine. So there's this, in theory, this big cask, big old barrel full of this fancy wine called Amontillado. And he has convinced Fortunato to come down, taste this wine, and let him know, is this really Amontillado or did I get tricked? Right? So they're going down into the vaults to find out. Okay. And we left off right here. So at the most remote end of the crypt, there appeared another, less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead, in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. So 3 sides still had, bodies, laying all over it. Skeletons, of course. The 4th side, the bones had been thrown down and laid promiscuously upon the earth, forming in one point a mound of some size. Within the walls thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceive a still interior recess, a depth of about 4 feet, in width, the height of 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no especial use within itself, but formed merely the interval between 2 of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacombs, and was backed by one of their circumscribing walls of solid granite. So there's just this recess, this little area, about 4 feet deep, about 6 feet high, 6 or 7 feet high, okay? And the back is another wall. It was in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depths of the recess. Its termination the feeble light did not enable us to see. "Proceed," I said. "Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lucchese, he is an ignoramus," repeated my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. So he stepped into this area and was like, wait, there's a wall here. A moment more, and I had fettered him to the granite. Chained? I had chained him to the wall? In its surface were 2 iron staples, distant from each other about 2 feet horizontally. From one of these descended a short chain, and from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his wrist, it was but a work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astonished to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. "Pass your hand," I said, "over the wall. You cannot but help feel the nitre. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return." "No? Then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power." Okay. He just chained Fortunato to the wall. And now, as his friend is chained to the wall, he says, let's go back. Come on, you can't, can you? You're chained to the wall. Oh, well, I think I'll just leave you here. Oh, but first I'll do a little bit of something for you. Wait, what? Okay, and so here is his friend. He says, "The Amontillado?" ejaculated my friend, not yet recovering from his astonishment. He's like, but I came down here for the Amontillado. Where is it?" "True," I replied, "the Amontillado." As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I had before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. So he's standing inside this niche, chained to the wall, and now his friend is going to build a wall right in front of him. I had scarcely laid the first tier of the masonry when I discovered the intoxication of Fortunato had in a great measure worn off. He suddenly didn't seem so drunk. I wonder why. It's like reality's hitting or something. The earliest indication I had of this was the low moan cry from the depths of the recesses. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long and obstinate silence. I laid the second tier, and the third, and the fourth, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chains. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to it with more satisfaction, I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. Okay, so he's doing this, and all of a sudden he hears the chains rattling, right? Like perhaps Fortunato's trying to break out, right? And he says, oh, well, I better stop for a moment and just listen. Okay, back to my work. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed the trowel and finished without interruption the 5th, 6th, and 7th tier. The wall was nearly level with my breast. I again paused, and holding the flambeau over the mason work, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams, bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form, seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I began to grope with it about the recesses. But the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the walls. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed. I aided. I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamor grew still. So as he's working, now Fortunato starts screaming, right? Get me out of here! Help! Help! And at first, Montrose was like, oh no, he's going to give me away. And then he's like, wait, I'm in the vaults. There's nobody around. Nobody can hear him. You know what? Just to prove it, I'm going to scream back. Go ahead, scream. We'll both scream. It's all good, right? Nobody's going to hear you. Until finally the clamor grew still. He gave up screaming, right? It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with the weight. I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came out of the niche a low laugh that eradicated the hairs on my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, oh, a very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We shall have many a rich laugh at it at the palazzo. Over our wine? So Fortunato's like, oh, this is a really funny joke. Yep, you got me. Okay, let's laugh about it, but let's go. The Amontillado, I said. Oh, yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will they not be awaiting us at the palazzo, the Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone. Yes, I said, let us be gone. For the love of God, Montresor. Yes, I said, for the love of God. But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, Fortunato? No answer. I called again, Fortunato? No answer still. I thrust the torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth a reply, only a jingling of bells. My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end to my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For half a century, no mortal has disturbed them. In pace requiesce, which means rest in peace. So based on that last sentence, did he did Montresor manage to seek revenge with impunity? For half a century, for at least 50 years, no mortal has disturbed them. So nobody's found it for at least the next 50 years. So yes, he was able to get his revenge, and he was able to get it with impunity. So I hope you enjoyed this story. Thanks.